This is Sneaker Gears. My name is Levi, and welcome to a special Running Gears episode where we're going to discuss the top 5 most cushioned running shoes you can get here on the market. Let's jump right in. If this is your first time watching the channel, thank you for joining us. Please consider subscribing, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up at the end. Now, we will have links below in the description if you want to buy any of these, and it does help the channel as they are affiliate links. But today we're talking about not the most comfortable, not what I think is the best cushion, but just flat out what is the most cushioned running shoes on the market. Now, obviously we're going to have our top 5, but I do want to get into some of the folks who think other shoes should be in it, and we're going to kind of disqualify some of the other shoes first and rank them as needed. Your first sector is your max cushion kind of everyday trainers, something like your Brooks Glycerin or your Nike Infinity React. Both of those shoes have about a 30mm heel stack, 31 I believe on the Glycerin, and a 21 and 22mm forefoot cushion stack height. So that's the amount of cushion you have. Now, some of the shoes we have in the top 5 here have 10 to 15mm more cushion in the forefoot. Now, 14 to 15mm is the cushion of something like the Adidas Boston 9. So you literally have a whole shoe's worth of cushion, not in what we consider a max daily trainer and what's available in what is the most cushioned shoes out there. Our next tier are shoes that have a lot of cushion but just didn't quite make the top 5. Those are going to be your Endorphin Pro and Endorphin Speed by Saucony. Those both have about a 35mm heel stack and 27mm forefoot stack. Also following along those lines is the Brooks Hyperion Elite 2. That one has the same 35-27. Very well cushioned and amazing shoes. I have the Hyperion Elite coming my way, but the reviews have been amazing, and the Pro and the Speed have been some of my absolute favorite shoes to run in. So just because they're not the top 5 most cushioned doesn't mean they're not cushioned well by any means. I also want to throw in there the Novablast from Asics, which is Asics' most cushioned shoe. That has a 37mm heel stack and a 27mm forefoot stack. Again, these are really high cushioned shoes that you can use for, well, either race, daily training, kind of a mix there. Both the Pro and the Elite are racing shoes, but they do have the rubber and the enough cushion to be used for pretty much anything. So now we get into kind of the meat and potatoes in the top 5. Now I do have 2 honorable mentions here. One is going to be your Altra Paradigm. This shoe has a 31mm heel stack, which is also its forefoot stack because the Ultra is known for having a 0 drop heel stack. So essentially, this is the Altra Paradigm 1. They are now on the Paradigm 5. So this specific model, I believe, is a 30mm, but the new one is a 31mm with a much bouncier ride with their Ego cushion, as well as a little bit more flexible. This was definitely stiff, and this is one of the first generations 5 years ago max cushion shoes. So they were kind of ahead of their time. So that was kind of number 7, and number 6, and these are kind of additional to the top 5, is the tried and true VaporFly. This has, again, all these are taken from kind of reported statistics, not an actual laser, so there's going to be a little bit off. This is reported as having a 40mm heel stack and a 32 forefoot stack. Now, I actually think it's less. World Trail Run, I'll put a link to them over here, did an article where this had as low as a 26 and 32, and they did all their testing on sizes 9.5, I believe. So this is a 12.5, and needless to say, obviously there's plenty of cushion in a VaporFly, and it's simply not top 5 here in 2020 because the top 5 shoes all have a tremendous amount of cushioning and kind of leapfrogged what folks thought as far as how much cushion you can actually use in a running shoe. And apparently you can have a lot as long as it's lightweight. Some of the best runners in the world are using cushions setups that have a lot of cushion. It's not like years past where you wanted a minimal setup. You want something light, and generally you want something with a carbon fiber plate or some kind of plate that helps with their propulsion, but at the same time, they all have a lot of cushion. All right, so number 5, and this is part of the Saucony Endorphin series, is going to be your Saucony Endorphin Shift. Let's see if it gets it there. This is probably the most boring model, but this has a rear stack height of 35 millimeter and a forefoot stack height of 31. Now, if you're wondering why this is above the VaporFly, it's because the VaporFly in many reports has less than what's reported in that forefoot stack height. Also, I don't know if I mentioned it, I'm looking at the forefoot stack height because as you start running and really picking up the pace, you're going to be using that mid to forefoot more than your heel. So a lot of shoes can come with a lot of heel cushion, but having that matching forefoot cushion is what really set apart these max cushion setups. Now, you're going to find with a lot of cushion setups that have a very high stack height is because there's only so much flexibility, and this actually is not that bad. All of them are going to have some kind of rounded edge. I know with the HOKAs, they have something called their Metal Rocker. On the Saucony, they call it their speed roll. They all have some kind of rocking or propulsion technology because it doesn't quite flex as naturally as maybe you would like on different shoes. So that's kind of the compensate because you have so much foam underneath. Unless they're going to do kind of giant cutouts, not having as much flexibility is going to give that ability to still feel somewhat fluid. Now, this is probably of the top 5 the most daily trainer of it, and we do have another one that's going to be very close to it, and I guess let's talk about that one next. Number 4 is your HOKA One One Bondi. Now, whether you're getting the Bondi 5, 6, or 7, the 7 is most rated recently at a 36 millimeter heel stack and a 32 millimeter forefoot stack, just slightly above what we have here in the Saucony Endorphin Shift. Now, for those eagle-eyed, this is a HOKA Clifton. I don't have the Bondi because trying them on in store, I simply preferred the Saucony Endorphin Shift a little bit more. Now, this is simply a try-on in store on a treadmill, walking around. This is not a full test, but watching reviews and having kind of used both in limited fashion, but this much more, I actually preferred the squishy, super soft setup of the Clifton, which actually, even though it has less stack height, is quite a bit, as I said, softer and squishier while having a little bit more flexibility than something we had on the Bondi. So this is not the Bondi, but as a quick comparison, if you are looking at those two, both are going to be great either long run options, recovery day options, or they can be just your daily trainers. There's plenty of rubber on both. There's plenty of cushion on both, and they're really meant to be used for a lot of miles. These are not necessarily racing shoes by any means. The Saucony Endorphin Shift, I believe, is a bit lighter for me because it has the inclusion, and you guys can see it in here, of that Power Run Plus drop-in top layer, and I actually double stacked that. I'll have a video on that coming soon. I found the bounce on this to be quite a bit more than what you're getting on the Bondi. It has very similar impact protection, and I just prefer the speed roll slightly favorable to the Metal Rocker on the HOKA. Both really great shoes. If you haven't tried either one, it's really going to come down to fit and preference, and honestly, I guess there's not really a bad option between either one of these. Now, number 3 I don't have, but again, this is a video on the most cushioned shoes, is actually going to be the Adidas Adis Pro. Now, this is a weird one because generally half a millimeter is not within the tolerance of most manufacturers, but Adidas does claim it has a 41 millimeter heel stack and a 32.5 millimeter forefoot stack. Either way, it's a lot of cushion. Now, I've heard mixed reports as it being super soft and bouncy, as well as reports on different reviews it being not bouncy enough and a little bit stiff. And this could be a variety of factors as to the size of the shoe, the size of the runner, the gait, and how the person is using it. But I don't know if this is going to be a great shoe, but I do know it has a lot of cushion. So whether it's bouncy or not, have a lot of high energy return, at least we know it has a lot of stack height, has a lot of cushion, and is definitely going to absorb the impact. Now, the Adis Pro is falling into the racing category, so it is a little bit lighter than what we have in some of the other shoes here, as well as the traction is really meant for a race day. It's not meant for hundreds and hundreds of miles. Now, I'm sure you'll get some good use out of it, but again, this is more of a race day option versus what we have with our first two options in the Bondi and the Endorphin Shift. Number 3, and this is one I definitely have to do a review on, is the Nike Tempo Next. Now, this is another one that has varied reports on what the actual stack height is. Now, according to Running Warehouse, this has an official stack height of 45 millimeters in the heel and 41 in the forefoot, would put it at a little bit more than the AlphaFly. But having both the same size shoes here, and forgive me, I think that is a 12.5, this is a 12. The variance shouldn't be that difference. The AlphaFly definitely feels way more cushion. I guess that cheats into what's number one. But this, for being such a high stack cushion shoe, for having so much rubber, and I guess you can look at it and see something, this is meant to put a lot of miles on. This is really meant to be used for what is in its name. This is a tempo shoe. This is when you really don't really enjoy it unless you pick up the pace. If you're just going for a jog, if you're doing some regular miles, it feels like the forefoot zoom columns really just kind of collapse and they don't really push off enough. And I don't know if that's because there's a less PSI in there, or what the difference is, or if that plate here, which is not carbon, but I mean it's a nylon plate, is a little bit too hard or too soft. It's something that if you're walking around, you feel that it wants to pick it up. And as you start to pick it up until you get to a faster speed, it's just not quite as comfortable. So this is not necessarily a daily trainer like the first two. This is quite a bit heavier than you would think for a racing shoe, unlike the Adis Pro, but this is a very specific shoe, again, called the Tempo Next, to really work on those tempo paces, work on intervals where you're picking up the speed and then slowing it down. But this really shines most at tempo speeds. And it's a shame because it has so much cushion. And if you're going to use it to walk around, this is definitely one that is still super cushioned, but it feels very awkward as a casual shoe simply because it's really kind of pushing you forward, has a bouncing effect, and you really feel the different cushion setups here with the React, with the Zoom X, and then with the Zoom Air, all not quite working together harmoniously unless you're really running. And finally, you guys probably guessed it, the most cushioned shoe on the market, and it's kind of cheating for Nike to do this. I believe Nike almost forced the whatever International Running Association to make rules on how much cushion you can put in a shoe, is the AlphaFly. This supposedly has less cushion than the Tempo Next, simply because it does have to meet regulations for race day. But at least in my size, 12.5 versus a 12, it feels like it has substantially more cushion, not only in the heel with that all Zoom X heel, but also in the forefoot, having more Zoom X over larger Zoom pads. This obviously is a shoe like the VaporFly, like the Tempo Next, that really pushes you forward and wants you to go faster. But if you do slow down, if you are doing, say, intervals or having some track day sessions, when you're slowing it down, it still feels really good. Now, obviously, it excels at going fast. This is the marathon racing shoe that sets records. So the best runners in the world are getting their best times in a shoe that has the most cushion. And 5 years ago, 10 years ago, no one thought that. They thought you wanted to be as little cushion as possible, as lightweight, as most flexible as you can. And someone who is a bigger runner like myself and really elite jogger, maybe not even elite, even something like this is way past my needs, but being able to jog in it, it really just alleviates any pain. After I take a run in these, I really feel like my legs didn't even go on a run. Like, they feel super fresh, but I have a good workout, my lungs feel worked out, and I actually feel good for the rest of the day. But so something like this is absolutely amazing. Now, when you are running in a carbon fiber plate like this, it's something to take in mind. This is going to put a little more stress on your calves, on your Achilles, and at least for me, that is something that is getting stronger, and I definitely feel it the day after, versus a shoe that has a little bit more natural propulsion or natural flexibility. You're not going to have that stress. But the AlphaFly, one of the lightest shoes on the market, and not as light as its predecessors, but the most cushion, bounciest. Not a lot of flex there because it really pushes you forward with that carbon fiber plate, but that upper with that atom knit, it really compensates for having so much stack height. And surprisingly, even though you have so much cushion and so little upper, it still feels very well balanced. But this is number one for the most cushioned running shoe you can get on the market. Guys, girls, if you like that video, please give it a thumbs up. Please put down in the description if you want to see any comparisons or any detailed breakdown. I'm happy to help out as much as possible. Hopefully, if you want to get one of these shoes, use the links below. As always, guys, hopefully it's helping. I really appreciate you. This is Levi with Sneaker Gears, and I will come at you later.